Welcome to another video. Today we are going to be talking about the camera that got everything started for me, and that would be the LUMIX G85. Focus. There we go. So the LUMIX G85 for me came in ways by this. I started a podcast, as I had mentioned in my last video, and I needed a camera that was going to do unlimited recording. And when doing a ton of research, I just could not find anything that would do anything past 30 minutes, or in some cases 29 minutes or 29 minutes and 30 seconds. And I needed something that was also inexpensive. I couldn't have anything that cost way too much money or anything like that. So during the research, I came across a YouTuber that goes by Geeky Nerdy Techie. I believe his name is Shane. I will link his YouTube in the description below. I came across him, and it seems like he is a massive Lumix fan as well. And he had talked about the G85s and how he was also doing a video podcast at the time. And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. The images look great. There's no recording limit. You can run unlimited as long as you got a dummy battery and enough memory card space and so on and so forth. And so that's the camera I went with. Got the G85, and I've had some rough times and I've had some great times with this camera. I think overall it is a great beginner's camera. I think it taught me a lot. It taught me really how to work a camera to begin with, because I had no idea outside of my iPhone. And it taught me how to become, I guess, a better filmmaker in general, like how to light things properly, how to expose properly, which I'm still working on, how to frame things properly, so on and so forth. And there was a lot of learning to do with this. So there are a ton of videos out there that are going to explain all the features on this camera, all the good, all the bad. So I'm not going to cover all of that. I am going to cover a few though. The main con of this camera is its low light performance. It's no secret that a micro four thirds camera typically does not do well in low light environments. The sensor's smaller. It can't take in as much. It can't take in as much light. So with that, you have to really have good quality lighting. So I've invested over the years. I started out with basically like the telephoto, like flash umbrella setup, really awful setups. And they had these giant spiral bulbs. I don't even know what those are called. And it did fine, I guess. I'll have some footage here displaying what that first podcast looked like, and it was horrendous. And then I moved on to some panel lights. I went through, I think a lot of people that are starting out, they all go through and try to find what is that cheap but decent brand. And the first one I found was Newer, I believe is how you say it. And I have quite a few of their products. But the first one I got was some LED panel lights. It was the Newer 60 something. If I can figure it out, I'll put it on the screen here. They're still something I use almost all the time. I still even use them in a pinch for wedding filmmaking because I haven't gotten anything else yet. I am looking at some other Amaran type lights and some COB lights, and hopefully I'll get those soon. But for now, those are my lights. And then other than that, the lights I'm lighting this with are like for streamers or something small and set up. These thin little panel lights from Godox, I believe. They're all great. They get you there. They're not completely color accurate, but they're close enough. They're better than just any lights in your house. So I learned how to light. I learned how to do that. And then I started to learn what is going to make this better. The other things about this camera that aren't the best, rolling shutter is an absolute nightmare. I believe that's what it's called. But basically, if I pan left to right, right to left, I think even up and down in like a 4K 24 setting, it looks awful. It actually hurts my eyes when watching it. I'm wondering if it's something I did in post or is it something that I did wrong, but I think it's just the rolling shutter on this camera. If you decide that this is something you'd like to get, I would highly recommend not panning left or right, even on a gimbal or anything like that. No matter how smooth it is, keep your shots straightforward. For wedding filmmaking, I learned real quick that the better shots are just kind of, you know, a 12 to 15 second hold, maybe even sometimes that's a little too much on a subject or whatever I'm shooting at that point. and then move on instead of, you know, trying to pan across and do all this. A lot of these budget cameras have terrible rolling shutters. They're not made to do, especially this, something that's high action or anything like that, as far as left or right, up or down. And then there's a lot of cool features on this. It's got custom memory modes on it. So I set up a 4K 24 and then a 1080 60. If you didn't know, this camera only shoots up to 30p, I believe, in 4K, but then your 60 or slow-mo, if you will, would be 1080p 60. And I think that's fine. The 1080p images out of this look fantastic. I think they're great. I don't see an issue with it at all. A pro of this, it's extremely lightweight. It's very small. I'm trying this new thing. I saw some YouTubers that kind of either clip this somewhere or they just straight up put it in their hands. And we're going to be going outside in a bit to test this camera. I'll have the windscreen on it and we'll see how this turns out. But it's very small in the hands. I don't have the biggest hands, but you know, it's not that bad. You know, it's kind of comfortable. My son loves it. My son's 4, and he's able to kind of fit his hands and go around it. So it's a small, little, nifty camera, and I like that. There's different photo modes on it. I believe it's 12 point something megapixels, so the photos aren't the best out there, but for a beginner or somebody that can think of just a few iterations of an iPhone ago, you're going to get about the same photos, but in a professional format. You can shoot RAW with this, however good that is. Autofocus on these cameras are terrible, but as a noob, I only really use autofocus. I've gotten better with manual focus, but I find that the styles that I shoot in, this kind of run and gun, and even wedding filmmaking, and I know a lot of wedding filmmakers will shoot manual focus. I'm just not quite there yet. I want to nail the shot, and somehow I've managed to get this camera, my G85 Mark II, and the S5 II. Of course, the S5 II has the upgraded phase detect, but I've managed to get those to autofocus just fine. It's rare that I find shots out of focus. And if I do, luckily in my case, I haven't had to use them. Battery life is decent on this. With the battery, you can get up to close to about 2 hours of record time, as long as you got the memory space. Pretty much like anything else, you've got your manual aperture priorities, your program. You can take 4K photos on this. It's like a 4K photo mode to give you a little bit better photos. I think it takes like a video or something, chops it up. Not much of a photographer, so I haven't used that much. You have ISO, white balance. It all works fine. I think it's one of the best things I ever did was get this camera. And again, I got to thank the geeky, nerdy, techie Shane, because it was one of the best recommendations that I've ever gotten on the internet. And then I moved on to bigger and better things. But one of the things that I did do was I started to look and say, how can I get my image quality better? And one of the things I came across was lenses. So one of the first lenses you obviously start with is a 12 to 60 kit lens. And this is what I started with here. Damn, I love this autofocus. I started with this here, and you know, it works, especially if you have a lot of light. It looks fantastic. It's a 3.5 aperture. So you're not getting super blurred out, blown out backgrounds and beautiful bokeh, but it works. It does its job. If you get close enough to a subject and get some of that background separation, and it actually looks really good and really sharp. Sometimes with these LUMIX cameras, almost too sharp. One of the next lenses I invested in that was one of the best purchases I've ever made when it comes to a camera outside of obviously major upgrades is the LUMIX G85. This little 1.7 mil, you know, aperture, 25 mil, which is a 50 mil equivalent. It is sharp, it's clear, it works, and it's great. And they go on sale for like 150 bucks all the time, brand new from Best Buy or B&H or any of the camera places you buy from. This was something that saved, at least not for like viewership or anything, but this saved the podcast for me wanting to stick with it because it let in a lot more light with the 1.7 f-stop. It allowed me to have nice, sharp, beautiful images. At first we started with just one, and I didn't even put it on me. I put it on my partner on the show, which was a buddy of mine named Nico. And I was like, Nico, you always look so good in these videos. And we've got these $700, I believe, brand new for these cameras. And that's with a kit lens. $700 camera, $150 lens, and you look fucking fantastic. So that was one major upgrade that I am so happy I did. And then from there, I picked up a couple other little lenses. I picked up I talked about it on the last video. So it's a 45 to 150. I think on the last one I said 14 to 150. But I picked up the 45 to 150, and It's good for, again, if you have light, you have enough. I believe it starts at an F. Starts out in F4, goes up to 5.6 throughout the zoom range, all the way up to 150. So for outside, some landscape photography maybe, it's a decent lens. Again, just another LUMIX G lens, nothing special. Again, 150 bucks. I think I got this one for Christmas one year. I've used it at a couple weddings. It wasn't the greatest because there wasn't enough light involved, but it did its job. It got me what I needed. And I'm sure, again, with the proper lighting, especially if you're outside doing any type of, maybe some birds, if you can get close enough or anything like that, any landscape videos, this would be great. You got a good range there. So it's a 45 to 150, which essentially is a 90 to 300 in that equivalent. And then the next lens I bought was a little ridiculous. Now, I bought this one after the GH5 Mark II, but naturally, if you picked up this camera, you could feel free to spend 3 times the amount of the camera on a fantastic lens. This is a 10 to 25, so a 20 to 50 equivalent. And it is a 1.7 aperture all the way through. It's got a focus clutch ring. I'll talk about this more in another video, but yeah, this lens costs more than 2 or 3 of these G85s, but I've tried it on the G85, and of course it makes the G85 look like a very expensive camera. So sometimes it's not always the camera, especially if you know how to work it, which I'm still obviously learning. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm having fun doing it. I do have another lens somewhere. Let me see if I can find it quickly. So I cannot find it, but it is and I'm gonna screw this up. I'm gonna put it on the screen because I'm gonna find the name for you, but Youngwo 42.5, which is or 42.5, which is an 85 millimeter equivalent. 50 and 85 is kind of where I would like to stay mostly, other than some wider angles. I actually don't have an 85 for the S5 II yet. That is probably the next lens I'm getting. Great for like speeches and stuff like that, for weddings, any close-ups that you really need and you don't want to get too close. They look fantastic. So I picked up the Youngwo 42.5, and so far I don't like it. So I don't necessarily recommend that. That's something I'll probably revisit soon. But when I did the last wedding, my B cam was a GH5 Mark II, and I did not like the way it came out. Again, though, we had issues with lights, but it is a 1.7. We had ISO cranked a little bit, but not too much. We were outside, but we kept getting cloud cover. But yeah, I don't think I recommend that lens. Maybe the Panasonic variant would be better. It was another $150 lens. So sometimes you just got to take the plunge and find out if it's going to work. Other than that, what I want to do next is we are going to get off this beautiful S5 Mark II. We are going to take this road trip outside with this just in my backyard. It's not going to look flattering. I just cut the grass though, but I've got some dead spot areas. Animals are tearing up my yard, but going to try to get some images, do another little talking head like this, see how things go. Let's see what we can get out of this other than the B-roll that I've already put in here. All right, so recording here now. We are outside in my backyard, as I talked about. One of the things I want to mention about this camera too is that the 4K recording, when you go to record, it does a slight crop in, which is insane because this camera is already at a crop. With it being micro four thirds, you're already at a super crop. So right now I'm at the 12 millimeter on the kit lens. It is already at 24 mils, but once you go into 4K, it does like this extra slight crop. I don't know how much it actually did there, but you know what? It's not too bad. You get used to it and you kind of learn to use it. Just the same as the S5 Mark II has a crop when you go to 4K 60. It's weird, but whatever. This is already at a crop. I don't get it. The other thing is that it only records at 100 megabits on the 4K setting, and then on the 1080 settings, it's all the way down to 28, which is incredibly low. So you don't get a whole lot of information when you do it there. But again, as a beginner's camera, something you could start out with, it works really well, looks great, it's fantastic. And we're gonna do some shots out here. Just give you some quick things in real time, what's happened now, something that I didn't do 7 years ago or whatever the case may be. Another cool feature about this camera is it does have a lot of filmmaking, not a lot, but it's got some filmmaking features about it, such as a histogram that you can get on the screen. You have some exposure settings like most cameras do. Audio doesn't sound terrible. It's not the greatest. I'll mainly be getting the recording off of this. Colors look good. Right now I'm shooting in the Cinelite D profile. I'm just trying it out. We'll see how it looks. But most notably, if you talk to anybody that deals with these cameras, the favorite is the natural profile. You do the natural profile, you take some of the sharpness out, you take some of the noise reduction, bring it all the way down, because you can do that in post if you need to. You do that, you get a very good looking picture out of it for, again, a $700 camera. You kind of can't beat it. Some of the other things about it, again, you can change out the lenses. You have the different photo modes. You have custom memory settings. And at this point, I'm just hoping this looks good, so I would kind of make my point here. But I think so far, I mean, it's looking all right. It's hard to tell. But yeah, I mean, greens are greens, reds are reds, and it turns out good. So it is hot out here today, and as you saw before, I had flies flying all the way through my room and stuff, so it's not been good. Summer doesn't treat me well, but I do enjoy it. I hate being cold, but I also hate being hot. I need climate that's right in the middle. Where is that? Tell me where it is. That's where I'm moving. Let's go ahead and move now. We're going to do some tests, and I'm going to keep the mic kind of clipped on and kind of just show you in the 4K, and then I'll shoot a little bit of the 1080/60 just to kind of show you what that looks like. See if I can get anything, because again, rolling shutter sucks. I'll do a test on that so you can see that just real quick, and then we'll conclude the video. All right, so testing now. Sorry if the audio is bad, but you can kind of see, like, we'll do some of this rolling shutter here. See how that turns out in post, but not the greatest. Again, I'm on the 12-60 kit lens, so you can kind of zoom in quite a bit, get it lighten up a little bit. Kind of go from there. So 12-60 obviously gets up to a 5.6, so gotta stop it down some, but do a little vlogging on this. So that's kind of what it looks like here in the 12-60. You know, just wide enough to kind of vlog with. But the other good thing about these cameras is obviously with Micro Four Thirds, you have incredible image stabilization, and it's no stranger here even on it's kind of cheaper beginners kind of Micro Four Thirds camera. So I think it works out great. We'll see again how it kind of looks, but it's there. It looks good. Let's see here. Kind of run a little bit and see how that looks. Probably terrible, but we'll see. I'm shaking a lot. But yeah, so again, decent camera here. Let's kind of spin around. I don't think it's too bad when you're holding it still. It's when you move the camera back and forth like this is where it kind of gets bad as far as the rolling shutter is concerned. But yeah, decent here. All right, so now that I've sweat a little bit out here, got some footage there. Again, I think this camera is great. There are a lot of cool features about it. If you guys are interested in learning anything more about it, the lenses that I've used or that I have, if you want to know more about it, what I think about it, feel free to leave that in the comments. Drop me a like if you could. If you already haven't, subscribe to the channel. I would greatly appreciate it. There are gonna be more, but I didn't want to spend too much time on this. Again, there are great videos out there. Geeky Nerdy Techies is one of the best. It teaches you a lot of information. He's very good at deep diving into cameras. And then there are also other creators, I believe, Nolan, I'm gonna mess up his name, but I'll put it right here because he's also somebody that really helped me in making my decisions on some of these purchases. Hey, I appreciate anybody stopping by, checking out the video. I am gonna go in and hopefully get some AC and kill some flies. So the next video will most likely be on the G85 Mark II. I'll be going a little more in depth with that. It's a little more kind of that mid-tier level that you can get into and get some really good stuff out of. And also, it's not as old. I mean, this G85 is extremely old. I believe it came out in like 2014 or somewhere around there. So it's starting to show its age, but you know, it works great. I cannot complain for a $700 camera that really started my filmmaking journey. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys stay safe. I'm recording this before July 4th, and I'm gonna try to get it out also before the 4th. So have a happy 4th to everybody, and I appreciate you stopping by. Peace out.